Hi, I'm Lisa Wetzel, and I'm an Akashic Records consultant. We ask the Akashic Records the questions, and they provide the answers. And Carrie has the question.
What are human hybrids?
Hybrids of the human nature are an offset or a species of another breed. When we talk about human hybrids, we're talking about the universal consciousness or knowing that is lying within individuals that make them slightly different. And what I'm seeing is that it's the human mixing with a different breed. And the way that they're describing is that it may be a human of the earthly realm mixing with a galactic being. And when we talk about this hybrid, we're talking about the human nature that lies within one individual and the galactic knowledge that lies within another is interacting or intermingling together as one. They're usually in human form, but they have the knowledge of all that is that's further beyond the human or the earthly realm. This is what's hard for many humans to understand, because this is of a different consciousness. When you begin to recognize those that may be of a human hybrid, you'll begin to recognize that they may simply have features, and what I'm seeing is like a real square jaw. Their eyes might be a slightly different shape, and you'll recognize that maybe their nose might be slightly different. I'm seeing it maybe like a little bit flatter. I'm kind of seeing like a turtle face right now, so it's like a turtle nose. But when you begin to recognize that this humanoid might be slightly different or have different features or characteristics than what another human has, you'll begin to recognize that they may be slightly different in their way of thinking as well. When you begin to recognize that this may be a trait that is congruent in the human nature, you'll begin to recognize that there are many more humanoids out there than what the current population recognizes at this time. Okay, that's kind of freaking me out a little bit. So we're going to go with this and see what they say. A humanoid is the mixture of a human individual with the galactic being. And as you have said and as you have explained, this is what we have described to you. When you begin to recognize that humanoids walk the earth and that there are many of them, you'll begin to recognize that they are of all walks of life. And what I'm seeing is that it may be like a homeless man, or it may be a doctor or a lawyer. But what you'll find is that these specific individuals have knowledge that others don't. They may see something from a different perspective. They're more than likely really good at science and math. They're really good at creating things. They may be good at artwork, like creating paintings or construction. These specific individuals have the understanding of how numbers work in a spatial manner than what other simple humans have. And it's coming from their knowledge that was created in a different galaxy or universe than what we currently reside in. These humanoids were created from a specific breed of galactic being. They're saying they're called the Greys, but they're not. They're laughing and saying, but they're not really gray. They're kind of a bluish tone is what they're saying. But when you talk about the Atlantis population and those of other cultures or locations, you'll begin to recognize that they're all interbred. That it's almost like, it's kind of like the Native American population, to where there's not a whole lot of specific galactic beings that are on the earth that are not part human. And they may be a mixture of they're saying of the Atlantean beings, any of the galactic beings, maybe several different cultures that have mixed in with the human race. When you begin to recognize that these surround you, you'll begin to recognize that there is much knowledge and information that's been provided by these beings in order to support and coexist among the earthlings. So when you begin to recognize that you may have a friend that looks slightly different than you, and you wonder who they are and what they are or where they come from, you don't need to ask, because they don't know. Most of these beings are unaware of their lineage and where they came from. So when you label an individual as a galactic being, and make sure you know what you're talking about, is what they're saying, because they may not like it very much. So they're saying, so use your words carefully. But what you need to recognize is that there are many human hybrids, and there are many human beings that have come from galactic beings. And it doesn't mean that this just happened like within the last 100 years. It happened thousands of years ago. So what I'm seeing or understanding is that a galactic being may have been walking on the earth and they interbred, and that human lived their life, and they had more children, and they had the offspring that at that time was galactic based, but through time it's more and more humans are interacted with them. And what I'm seeing is something like Neanderthals. So basically Neanderthals, their look and their presence shifted and changed because they started interacting and breeding with a different culture, a different breed of human. And so when you begin to gain the understanding of how this evolution occurred, you'll begin to recognize that there are many men, humans, men and women, that have had this interaction with galactic beings over thousands of years. So that's kind of interesting. So is there any more questions about that?
Why did they come to Earth?
To save civilization. What I'm seeing is that they really came to Earth mostly during the dinosaur extinction. And I'm getting goosebumps. So they came here to Earth to replenish the population, to increase the livelihood of the Earth. So basically to repopulate Earth. That's interesting. Okay, are there any other questions about that? Okay, so that's why they came to visit. So it also makes me wonder if, there's many of us that don't, if you really go back this far, back to the dinosaur times, how many of us wouldn't have some kind of galactic genetics in us if they came back to repopulate the Earth? I bet there's a lot more of us that have this galactic genetics than what we're actually aware of. So that's something for you to think about. Have fun with that. So thank you for joining me. You can follow me at Facebook on Lisa Wetzel, Akashic Records Consultant. Instagram is Akashic Records Lisa Wetzel. YouTube is Lisa Wetzel, Akashic Records Consultant. And you can follow me on my podcast that I co-host with Thomas the Mystic, and it's Mystical Lodge Radio. Thank you.